Welcome back, everybody. Today, I want to talk about the 4 of my favorite herbs to grow in the fields here in West Tennessee. These 4 are some of the most reliable herbs that we can grow and harvest every single week through the spring, summer, and fall using caterpillar tunnels or some kind of protected culture. And we sell a lot of herbs at our market, and they're a lot of fun to grow, to harvest, and to sell. So I'm going to talk a little bit about each of them, how I grow them, and how I can get a high quality, consistent harvest each week. All right, before we really get started on talking about the different varieties of herbs that I grow, I want to talk about just a few fundamental important things that I have found from my experience that's really important. The most obvious thing, but one of the things that often can get neglected, and I certainly did in my early years of farming, was soil health. It is so important to take soil test and man your soil properly. Talk to some consultants to help you reach your target benchmark for your farm and your climate and your soil. And then, because one of the things that makes really any kind of leafy crop, whether it be lettuce, bunching greens, and herbs especially, is that any kind of environmental stress, whether it be heat, lack of water, but more importantly, lack of proper soil nutrition will make a lot of these herbs bolt really fast. So that is the first foundation that I really focus on before I even plant herbs. It's just really important. The second thing is consistent irrigation. You don't want too much because then it will completely just attract all kinds of fungal and foliar diseases, which is why I grow here in West Tennessee under protective culture. Because especially in March, April, May, and June, we can get so much rain that it can make growing this crop very difficult. By using tunnels, we can protect how much rain gets into our crop, because I do not like to have water, overhead irrigation on my leafy greens. I like to keep it as dry as possible. But all of my herbs has drip tape underneath this fabric. The fabric helps retain moisture, and then I have all that drip tape that is run on an automatic timer. And that is set to, if it's really hot, we have hot, warm nights, really hot days, maybe it's 30 minutes a day. Hot days, as we get into fall, cooler nights, maybe it's every other day or every third day. Depending on the season and how hot it is, regardless, we have automatic irrigation that I set to a consistent time of day for a consistent amount of time. I've just found from my experience that herbs benefit from consistent irrigation. It just needs, whatever you decide, it needs to be consistent. And you'll get sick of me saying this, but when it comes to growing any kind of crop or farming, business, whatever it is, consistency, whatever systems you have, it needs to be executed on a consistent, regular basis. So those are the few fundamental foundational things before I even start planting the single crop. I really want to make sure I have good health, healthy soil, and consistent irrigation. The next thing, this is probably just more of a personal preference and not really a rule for having healthy crops, but I do like growing things in landscape fabric. It does two things. The first one, obviously, keeps the weeds at bay. Weeds, you'll be surprised on how much weed pressure can compete for nutrition and water from your plants. So if you're finding you have a really hard time cultivating on time, then weed fabric can really help. The second thing that landscape fabric does is it helps retain soil moisture. The third thing, my favorite, is it keeps the crop clean. So there is no soil at all on this crop. It is clean. And this saves a lot of time in post-harvest. We can come through, we can harvest, And because the crop is clean, we do not have to wash. Anytime you add any kind of post-harvest task to a crop, adds a lot more time in our weekly schedule. With that being said, you don't have to grow in landscape fabric to grow a good crop, but that's how I like to grow. All right, when it comes to transplant, this is all transplant. We're not doing any direct seeding of our herbs. I personally like to grow in what I call P200. This is basically 200 cell trays in this 1020 tray here. For spring, summer, and early production, I like to do multiple cells of seeds per cell. The reason being is that realistically, to have consistent high quality crops, this is basically a one and done. Yes, technically it would grow back, and we certainly do have a consistent harvest in the fall and the winter, but in the summer with our heat, I've just found that cilantro just tends to bolt. So I'm coming through here and I'm just gonna harvest this whole plant, right? And then once that's harvested, I'm not aiming for a second harvest. How I do this is I'm doing a bed of mixed herbs every other week. And so once I start harvesting, I have about a 1 week window till this crop tends to bolt. And that goes with really all these 4 varieties that I'm talking about. Yes, you can get a longer harvest, but I just like to make this quick and easy. Cut. Once that's cut, I'm not planning for a second harvest. Again, if you're in a more northern climate, more temperate, you could probably get a longer harvest. But I've just found here in West Tennessee, when the days are 100 and the nights are in the 80s, it's just hard to get a reliable, consistent second crop. And I do like, back to this P200, we basically seed all of our herbs like this. It's all on P200. It's multiple seeds per cell. It makes pulling out very effortless. There's no poking and, struggling to get these. It needs to be done in a way where they pull out effortlessly. Everything that I kind of set up is made for efficiency. It needs to be as effortless as possible. Farming is already hard enough. I don't want to make this any harder on myself than is necessary. We don't have a lot of competition really with any of these herbs. And what I found in the market space is having consistent crops week after week, consistent quality, consistent amounts, helps my customers know that they can reliably come to the market and we will have this herb available to them. Cilantro is great. Again, we're just doing one and done. Just harvest a little bit for you here. Just cut this right at the base. So as you can see here, it's very clean. There's no soil, no debris, does not need to be washed. We do not advertise as pre-washed herbs, but we would mainly make sure that if we would not eat a crop because of either dirt or maybe disease, leaves, we're not going to sell it. So we only strive to sell a crop that we would eat ourselves. So this was one plant. So this would essentially be almost one pack here. Sometimes it is a little smaller in the wintertime. If we don't have as much, maybe we would get 2. But for the most part, people aren't eating a lot of cilantro. They're going to put it in their tacos or maybe salsa. So they typically don't need a lot. And folks don't like to waste food. So we've kind of found this nice, weight for our packs that people feel they can buy, and it's not going to go to waste. Other than that, it's just a relatively easy crop to grow. Again, we're seeding our sales every 2 weeks. We're planting in our fabric every 2 weeks. This will give us a 2-week window harvest. We'll harvest half this bed, for example, this week, the next week, the other half, and then by the time that's done, our next succession of planting is ready to go. All right, another fantastic herb that grows in the exact same system is dill. Now, dill is one of these herbs that we generally do not have a big demand for dill in the late fall, winter, and early spring. But when we start harvesting cucumbers, then that's when our dill sales and demand tends to pick up. People love making pickles, and so this is one of these crops that people tend to really gravitate towards once cucumbers are in season. We just recently started making pickles, so we're using a lot more of this for value add. But again, this is really easy and the exact same thing. It's one and done, and we're not aiming to get second regrowth. Now it will keep growing, and it doesn't bolt as fast as say cilantro. But again, I'm trying to plug in as much of our herbs into this weekly successions. As long as my numbers work, just because I could get another harvest, it doesn't really fit into my overall system of succession plantings for my other herbs. But yes, again, this is a really easy crop. As long as we keep this crop dry, we don't really have that much fungal disease. Keep it protected from the rain is really important as well. But this is we're just simply cutting this at the base, and there is our dill. For this much, we can actually split this into 2 packs. So one cell can really yield quite a bit of dill cells. Herbs is very profitable. If we had a big demand, say, for a wholesaler that just wanted a lot of dill and we could plant a whole bed of it, I would let this crop grow a little bit longer because we could get a pretty reliable second healthy crop. But it just doesn't fit with the other herbs as well. So one and done. Okay, let's talk about parsley. Parsley is the most difficult herb to grow in the summer. It grows slow. It has a similar growth to like celery when it comes to how long it takes to germinate and how long it really does take to grow. So it is definitely not as a productive herb on a crop, say like dill, cilantro, or basil, but it works in our system. Again, we follow the exact same thing. It's a few seeds per cell, P200, but the yield isn't as high. But as long as we can justify the space, as long as we're getting enough money, per plant, then we keep it into the system. So I'll kind of get a plant here. So this is not the biggest bunch, but this is good for a sleeve or a bunch of parsley in the summertime. Now in the wintertime, this will get massive, and that's generally when we have the most abundant parsley because it can really grow all winter long without bolting. Where in the summertime, when we have really hot days, really warm nights, it just really tends to bolt. Not quite as fast as cilantro, but very close to it. So this is good. So as long as I can get one bunch, one back sleeve, or one clamshell per plant cell, then it works in our system. So they're not all these herbs aren't equal to the value per square foot, but it's still worth having this crop. One thing that I found with herbs is to really help increase sales is to have all the herbs. So we have about 10 different varieties of herbs, and some folks come for the dill, some folks come for the cilantro. We want people coming for the parsley as well. While they're there, they may get some other herbs or some other items. The name of the game with really making herbs work, and either whether it be a farm store or online, is to have the whole line of herbs. That will just put you as the herb guy, and people will come to shop you every week as long as you have it consistently each week and as many different varieties as possible. All right, basil. Basil is by far the most popular herb that we grow. This herb, I only have really good success growing this in the spring, summer, and fall. The winter, it's just not warm enough. These are just one of these herbs that's very sensitive to cooler temperatures. Even a late, high 40s will really hurt that basil. So we really grow in the perfect climate for basil, at least in the summertime. So we sell a lot of this. We also sell a lot of this for pesto. So this is by far the most popular herb we grow. Fortunately, this is relatively easy. We've really worked hard on trying different varieties that really grow the best for us. And this is one of these crops that if we were to pick one leaf at a time, you know, and really kind of pick it low, we could technically get a month, month and a half from one crop. But again, we sell so much of it, and we do like to have, you know, tender, high quality basil. We just aim for every other week. We're just going to crop this out. Again, it's one of these things where we don't have enough sales for a complete bed. And I do love the quality of a 4-week-old basil. So the younger that crop is that we can harvest when it comes to basil, the fresher it is, the longer it's going to last in the fridge. Just everything about a young plant is going to last a lot longer, be higher quality, higher flavor, higher aroma, higher everything. So the longer basil sits in the field under stress, it's going to have more problems. So again, this is kind of the system that really works well for me, and I completely understand. If I would understand if you're watching this, you're like, man, I can harvest from basil summer long. Yes, that's probably true. But in my current system, I've just found this is really easy for us to maintain a high quality crop. All right, guys, well, that's kind of a basic overview on how to grow herbs. Hopefully you got some value from this. If you're interested in more detailed videos and instructions on how to grow and maybe how to sell, you can always check out my Living Farm course. There I've got over 500 videos of how to grow everything from selling. I also do weekly coaching calls to my member each week, answering any of your current problems that you may have. You can check the link below for those things. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. And let me know if there's anything else that you guys want me to cover in these YouTube videos, and we'll see you in the next one.